On the 4th of July, the American Independence Day, the United Kingdom made history. While the red, white, and blue flags waved across America, the Labour Party in the UK won the general election in the United Kingdom. They changed the political landscape of the nation after 14 years of Conservative administration, electing party members to a majority of the 650 House of Commons seats. Their leader, Keir Starmer, is now Prime Minister. But here's the thing. Will Keir Starmer actually be able to deliver on his promises? How do Conservatives plan on opposing him? Keep watching this video to find out. Before we even start to discuss the changing landscape of the UK, it's important to see how Labour managed to outwit the Conservatives. Or was it just a game of luck? Well, politics is never about luck, but in the case of Conservatives, their luck did run out. If you looked at this poster, in the context of general elections in the UK, would you think it'd be enough to win an election? You see, after 14 years out of power, the United Kingdom's Labour Party has won a majority in the July 4th parliamentary elections, taking back control of the government. And their message was one simple word: change. Imagine a political campaign boiled down to two choices. Now is the time for change, or now is the time to stay the course. Do you remember former President Barack Obama's campaign slogans? In 2008, it was change we can believe in. By 2012, it was just forward. Nothing flashy. Labour's branding was straightforward. They used a single-word slogan that everyone could remember. Signs and ads showed change in a no-nonsense typeface, all in deep Labour red. Imagine seeing campaign signs with a Union Jack flag elements and the word change. Digital ads had candidate photos with the slogan, "Vote for Change." They even had a secondary slogan, "Let's get Britain's future back." It's a bit like Make America Great Again, looking both forward and backward. Why did this work? The long and short of it is that the UK has faced Brexit, inflation, and a tough pandemic response. People felt lost, so Labour offered a fresh start. It's surprising, because Labour leader Keir Starmer, now the Prime Minister, wasn't even a big personality. His campaign was often vague, and people weren't super excited about him. But he had one thing going on for him: he wasn't a Conservative. He gave Labour a more moderate image, which won over many voters. A simple slogan, change, was enough to win. However, here's the thing. This slogan won't be able to keep them in power if Labour doesn't actually deliver on their promises. They have their work cut out for them, that's for sure. Will they succeed? Before we dive into their success metrics, what went wrong for the Conservatives? Simply put, the Conservatives had a long list of challenges and plenty of controversies to contribute to their downfall. First on the list was the public's frustration with the handling of the COVID-19 pandemic. They were too slow with their response, and it was ineffective. And then, if you add the scandals on top, such as Partygate, where members of the government were found to have broken the lockdown rules, the trust of the public had already been damaged. However, this wasn't it. Economic issues, specifically after Brexit, pushed people to the edge. Rising energy prices, inflation, and the cost of living left many people struggling to make ends meet. The Conservative Party was too conservative in charging taxes from corporations and high earners. Of course, the pun is intended. Trade disruptions, labor shortages, and increased costs affected businesses and consumers alike. All of this led to a sense of economic instability. Then there was the issue of immigration. Condemned for being both cruel and ineffectual, the contentious Rwanda policy sought to return asylum seekers to Rwanda. It also failed to address the underlying issues of illegal immigration and asylum processing backlogs. These policies alienated many voters who felt the government was not handling immigration in a fair and practical manner. Now, with the Conservatives out of power, the party is looking to rebuild and redefine itself. They need to address the issues that led to their defeat and reconnect with the voters. Why is it important what the remaining MPs think? Well, in part because it'll dictate the way the Tory party chooses to reshape itself in the future. Does it choose to elect a right-wing candidate, such as Ms. Badenoch, Mrs. Braverman, or Mr. Jenrick, in an effort to thwart the rising power of Reform UK, which has now secured multiple seats? Some party members contend that part of their demise was due to their soft stance on topics like immigration. Or does it attempt to go back toward the center with a candidate like Mr. Tugendhat or Mr. Hunt in order to recover a portion of the political territory that Labour is currently attempting to take up? Some within the party contend that the Tories' shift to the right contributed to the issue and alienated people who identified as economically conservative but socially liberal. Over the next few weeks, there will be a lot of back and forth and introspection before there's an answer. Now, for the real deal, how does the electorate feel about the general election? There's no denying the fact that the recent Labour Party election victory in the UK has stirred a mix of emotions across the country. According to a YouGov poll, 39% of Britons feel positive, with some delighted, while 35% are disappointed or even dismayed. Another unsurprising result is that these reactions are split along party lines. Labour supporters are mostly pleased or delighted, whereas Conservative and Reform UK supporters are largely dissatisfied. However, the overall sentiment towards Labour's win is more positive than the reaction to the Conservative majority in 2019. This shift in mood reflects a significant change in public sentiment. But why are people feeling this way? The Labour Party's win, although not marked by overwhelming enthusiasm, has sparked curiosity in many. What will the new government do differently? Can they live up to the expectations? As the dust settles, the nation's mood tracker shows a slight increase in optimism, the highest since the vaccine rollout in 2021. This is a stark contrast to the aftermath of the 2019 election, where sadness and fear were more prevalent. Are people starting to believe in a brighter future, or is this just a temporary shift? Whatever may be the answer, the reactions to this election are not just numbers. They reflect real hopes and fears. Now it's up to the Labour Party to live up to these expectations and turn the fears into joy. Labour's campaign slogan, "Change," signaled a new direction. However, for key foreign and defense policies, continuity is the main theme. The UK, a strong supporter of Ukraine since Russia's invasion in 2022, spends more on defense than any other European NATO member. Both Labour and the Conservatives have pledged steadfast support for Ukraine and plan to boost defense spending to 2.5% of GDP. But what does this really mean for the UK? Keir Starmer, who took over as Labour Party leader in 2020, focused on restoring the party's credibility in national security and defense. This was crucial after Labour's worst defeat since 1935 under Jeremy Corbyn. Starmer emphasized Labour's support for NATO, referencing Labour's Foreign Secretary Ernest Bevin's role in founding the alliance in 1949. The party also reaffirmed its commitment to the UK's nuclear deterrence, known as Trident. Labour's election manifesto promises a NATO test for major defense programs and a strategic defense review in their first year. They pledge unwavering support for Ukraine, including repurposing frozen Russian assets and advocating for Ukraine's NATO membership. Week 1 in office will be a test, coinciding with the Washington NATO summit. Can the new government turn promises into actions? Because the UK faces multiple crises that won't be solved overnight. Public services have been under strain since the Conservatives took power in 2010, leading to long waits in healthcare, struggling schools, wage stagnation, and labor strikes. Moreover, Brexit has negatively impacted trade and the economy, with GDP about 2 to 3% lower than if the UK had stayed in the EU. The Conservative government has faced numerous scandals and policy failures. From Boris Johnson's Partygate to Liz Truss's disastrous tax cuts and Rishi Sunak's controversial migration policies, which have cost millions without achieving their goals, these missteps paved the way for Labour's victory. But now, Labour must deliver on its promises. Labour's manifesto outlines broad promises, undoing the Rwanda policy, allowing asylum applications, and reducing the asylum backlog. On the economy, they aim to invest in industry and create a pro-business environment, though details are sparse. Labour also plans to improve the UK's trade and investment relationship with the EU, targeting food costs and professional services agreements. Their promise to save the NHS involves reducing wait times and enlisting the private sector to help. However, the funding source remains unclear. Labour's commitment to undoing the Rwanda policy and tackling the asylum backlog is a significant step, but the broader impact remains to be seen. How will these changes affect the overall migration landscape in the UK? Labour's promise to enhance trade and investment relationships with the EU could potentially ease some economic pressures, but the path forward is not without its hurdles. As Labour navigates the complexities of governance, the stakes are high. Will they succeed in bringing the promised change, or will they falter under the weight of expectations? The answers will unfold in the coming months and years, shaping the political and social landscape of the UK. The nation's journey under Labour's leadership has just begun, and their outcomes will be pivotal for the future. So how exactly does Labour plan to reach its goals? It's an open question. Labour doesn't have a bold new policy for the economy. There's no big, splashy framework. But let's dig deeper. On one of the major factors dragging Britain's economy down, Brexit, Labour plans to negotiate with the EU about agriculture and livestock to reduce food costs. They also aim to make agreements that will help UK professionals work in EU countries. But will this really fix all the economic pains of Brexit? What about migration? Besides scrapping the Rwanda plan, Labour's stance isn't much different from the Tories. Ben Brindle, a researcher at the Oxford Migration Observatory, told Vox that the Conservative government focused a lot on enforcement. Now, Labour's approach is similar as it involves many of the same enforcement actions to deter irregular migration. With the policies already in place, it's possible that migration for students and skilled labor will go down. Mind the fact that this won't be because of Labour, but due to measures that already exist. Moreover, Labour already has some ideas on how to tackle the housing and transit crises. They have proposed to uplift and loosen building restrictions immediately so new housing, infrastructure, and transit services can be built. Now, will this help stimulate the economy? It's possible, because the 1948 planning code that is employed at the moment is very restrictive and prevents the government from expanding. Because the government is unable to construct new buildings, they're facing problems in public infrastructure, housing, transportation, and energy. Businesses may now look forward to more infrastructure investment over time thanks to the uplifting of building restrictions. Ultimately, Labour sees building a stable government, especially after the post-Brexit uncertainty, as key. Their manifesto centers on stopping the chaos, framing their approach as a way to turn the national crises around. Could Labour really bring the stability Britain needs? It looks like it. If you enjoyed watching this video, don't forget to hit the bell icon and give this video a thumbs up. Until next time.